today's National Women's Business Council public meeting. My name is Tanae Dolphin, and I serve as the Executive Director and as the designated federal officer of this dynamic, all-volunteer, woman-led council. I now call this public meeting to order. The goal of today's meeting will be to provide critical updates around the work of the three subcommittees: access to capital and opportunity, inclusive entrepreneurial ecosystems, and women in STEM. We will also continue our learning efforts with a panel discussion focused on how women business owners can connect to government contracting opportunities. The Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization representatives from across the federal government, as well as SBA's director of the Women-Owned Small Business Federal Contract Program, better known as WOSB, will be joining us for an informative panel conversation. I'd like to take a few more minutes to give a quick overview of the council and the staff's activities since our last meeting. In March, NWBC co-hosted a phenomenal Women's Business Summit that was kicked off by President Biden and Administrator Guzman at the White House. The in-person and online sessions can be found on the White House and SBA's YouTube channel. Council members and staff also raised their voices and lent their expertise during the WeBank Conference, NABO's Advocacy Days, Startup Champion Network Policy Summit, USPTO's Women Entrepreneurship Symposium, and Seawell's Diana International Research Institute Impact Day 2023. We are also thrilled to welcome two new council members to NWBC. Samantha Abrams, CEO of Walker's Legacy Foundation and founder of and co-owner of Sopadilla's Caribbean Restaurants, and Katika Roy, founder and CEO of Pipeline Equity LLC. Welcome. Now I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge and welcome all of the SBA officials, both at headquarters and in the regions, and congressional staff who are attending today's meeting. If you're in this space, then you know that our community was saddened to hear of the passing of Candace Waterman, President and CEO of Women Impacting Public Policy. Our friend and partner Candace participated in our last public meeting, which is one of the many examples of her commitment to this work. No matter how busy she was, she always said yes to supporting others and uplifting women. I continue to marvel at how many people she touched and the incredible impact she had advancing women's business owners. Her family, friends, and colleagues are in our thoughts and prayers. For those of you who are joining us today but are not familiar with NWBC, NWBC is a nonpartisan federal advisory council housed within the U.S. Small Business Administration, providing advice and counsel to the President, Congress, and the SBA Administrator on issues of importance to women business owners and entrepreneurs. It is important to know that NWBC is the only federal advisory committee, also known as a FACA, solely focused on women's business enterprise. And it is comprised of women business owners and leaders of women business organizations. As public servants, we love the work that we do, but as we create and uplift policy recommendations to benefit women entrepreneurs, we need the voice and experience of those that live this day in and day out. This is why FACAs are so important and why the work of this council matters. My role as Executive Director and DFO is to serve the council and to serve as a liaison between the council and the SBA at the pleasure of the administrator. The council and staff are committed to providing a more inclusive platform where women entrepreneurs across the country from all walks of life can feel heard, supported, and connected to key decision makers in our nation's capital. It is important to always right-size expectations. I say this at every public meeting. The learnings from this meeting will help guide the council and the staff's work and to inform our current policy priorities. We've invited some experts to share some information today, but for the sake of clarity, we, NWBC, are not a programmatic office, but rather an advisory policy office and operate as such. As you all know, today's meeting is public. It was appropriately noticed in the Federal Register. Please also note that copies of all meeting materials and public comments received will be made available for public inspection. We will also prepare the minutes of today's meeting and make them available to the public within 90 calendar days. The meetings of our prior public meetings are available on our website, nwbc.gov. With that, I will now call roll. I will ask all council members to please turn on the cameras and respond by voice. Samantha Abrams.
Here.
Brandy Butler. Karen Clark Cole.
Here.
Kathy Cochran.
Here.
Jamie Gaucher.
Here. Thank you.
Leslie Lynn Smith.
Here.
Roberta McCullough.
Here.
Jenny Poon.
Here, sorry.
It's okay. Pamela Prince Eason.
Here.
Katika Roy.
Here.
Selena Rogers Dickerson.
Here.
Dr. Shakina Williams. Thank you. A quorum has been established. Now I'd like to invite Acting Assistant Administrator for the Office of Women's Business Ownership, Donald Smith, to address the council. Donald is responsible for building the capacity of women entrepreneurs, primarily through the implementation of the Women's Business Center program. He is an amazing resource for NWBC, and we are incredibly grateful to connect on all of the great work he leads. Assistant Administrator Smith.
Tanae, thanks so much for that warm welcome. I'm Donald Malcolm Smith, the Acting Assistant Administrator for the Office of Women's Business Ownership. Before I share the updates for our office, I would like to acknowledge the leadership and commitment of SBA's 27th Administrator, Isabella Casillas Guzman, who's demonstrated a fervent and strong commitment to women entrepreneurs. Under her leadership, our network has grown, expanded, and become even more impactful. For 35 years, OBO has been on the front lines of helping women entrepreneurs, especially those from underserved communities, realize the American dream of starting, growing, sustaining, and importantly, building a resilient business. The Women's Business Center Network started as a handful of committed organizations in 1988 and has now expanded to a nationwide network of 145 women's business centers that serve almost 90,000 women entrepreneurs each year. In 2022, we were happy to welcome 5 grantees in our network that are affiliated with minority serving institutions. These organizations educate and empower communities in need and have a long and storied history of supporting entrepreneurs from underserved communities. As President Biden announced at the White House, kicking off the 2nd Annual Women's Business Summit, OBO is poised to announce a competition for 15 new women's business centers by investing further in minority serving institutions. This is exciting, as we will have more than 160 women's business centers, which means we can connect with even more women entrepreneurs and strengthen their communities. Lastly, our WBCs are here to help. To find a center near you, please visit sba.gov/local-assistance. Thank you so much, and thank you so very much for your support of women entrepreneurs. Tanae, back to you.
Thank you so much, Acting Assistant Administrator. We really appreciate all of the work that you're doing to grow that program. Next, we will hear from the chairs of our 3 subcommittees who will update the council on our discussions and focus areas. First up will be Chair of the Access to Capital and Opportunity Subcommittee, Roberta McCullough. Councilmember McCullough.
Thank you so much, Director Dolphin. And good afternoon and welcome again, everyone. My name is Roberta McCullough. I currently serve as Senior Vice President of Operations for Institute Capital, a community development financial institution program for the National Institute of Minority and Economic Development. There, I lead a team in providing investment capital for small businesses, affordable housing developers, and community-based organizations. I'm also very focused on encouraging HBCU collaboration through partnership development, providing training and funding to our future entrepreneurs in their student bodies. I'm tremendously honored to serve as board chair of the Association of Women's Business Centers, and for the past year, as a council member of the National Women's Business Council and chair of our Access to Capital and Opportunity Subcommittee. It is my distinct honor to open this segment of this public meeting. As Executive Director Tanae Dolphin mentioned, we will be sharing a sneak preview, if you will, of some of the conversations around emerging challenges facing U.S. women business owners, key policy trends, as well as our own shared lived experiences. This year, we continue to frame our focus on areas generally within 2 lanes. 1, increasing the source of and amount of fair and affordable capital for more women entrepreneurs looking to start, scale, and grow a business, as well as streaming the access to WASB and ED-WASB certification while maintaining the integrity of and parity for the program, as well as increasing prime and subcontracting awards that go to women small business owners. That said, while our policy recommendations are not yet fully set in stone, we certainly have a clear direction and have identified key areas where we've heard policy change is greatly needed and where we are finding alignment with key national women's business organizations and some bipartisan legislative proposals. As the only independent federal advisory committee dedicated to tackling issues of importance to women small business owners, we take our role in connecting their voice to national legislators and federal government officials very seriously. First, we are focused on expanding fair and inclusive access to traditional sources of capital for historically undercapitalized women business owners. Ensuring the permanency of the Community Advantage Program is an important step to reaching underserved communities. We are currently discussing how SBA further prioritize outreach to diverse women business owners, especially those in historically underserved communities, but also track and identify any potential areas of improvement. Of course, it is so promising to see that in March of this year, SBA also announced a series of additional reforms, including lifting a 4-year moratorium on adding new lenders to strengthen this network and increasing the maximum 7A government guaranteed loan size up to $350,000 for their 7A small loan program. Again, it will be important to track successes because that can make a huge difference to communities who have historically been left out of traditional loan and business credit opportunities. And I'll take a personal privilege to say right now, our organization, Institute Capital, the CDFI of the National Institute, is in line to become one of the next CA lenders. So we are very excited about that and can continue the work that we do. Secondly, we are exploring sustainable avenues to improve direct, non-dilutive funding for more women, color, particularly Black women, who have shared stories of flagrant discrimination. Despite demonstrating sound money management practices and robust cash flow and revenues. For example, this subcommittee is exploring past and current proposals of both hybrid and direct grant programs, including those that leverage the expertise and networks of incubators, accelerators, women's business centers, and community navigators focused on serving Black and communities of color. Third, We continue to liaise with key women's business organizations like NABO and seek to understand how further expansion and codification of micro business could help improve women business owners' access to federal funding and resources. Last year, NWBC recommended Congress consider defining micro businesses and continue working on improving equitable, affordable access to all of SBA's lending programs, including SBA's micro lending program. Again, we are seeking to understand which, if any, pandemic lending programs should be revisited to include more micro business and/or provide greater repayment flexibilities, particularly in light of various post-pandemic natural disasters and rising inflation. We again are also seeking designation as a SBA micro lender, so we are incredibly excited about those opportunities. Fourth, we continue to explore how to improve representation of women on both sides of the venture capital table. It goes without saying that for VC-ready, women-owned startups, investments remain anemic at best, below 3% for women and well below 1% for Black women. And finally, we continue to monitor National Women's Business Organization policy recommendations and legislative proposals to strengthen both the WASB certification program as well as increase the WASB, ED-WASB federal contracting awards. For example, in recent years, NWBC proposed improving education for contracting officers and prospective women business owners who may wish to consider obtaining certification. And last year, we proposed properly funding and resourcing the program as well as raising the 5% goal to 7% or higher. This year, we continue to champion parity for the program. That said, our subcommittee is currently exploring how to ensure guardrails to stay in place to preserve the integrity of the program, as well as identify tactics to significantly increase actual prime and subprime contracting awards to women. However, this opportunity for improvement is in the details. So I'm grateful and excited to hear from our OSDBU panel of experts during the second half of this meeting. We hope this important discussion will serve as a springboard to policy recommendations that build on last year's work. With so many competing interests, it is challenging but important we keep these issues and proposals front and center on the national conversation to continue supporting and empowering our U.S. women's small business community in many ways that make sense and make a difference. Thank you again for your engagement and advocacy. We remain locked arm, moving forward on this important journey together. I will now turn over this virtual dais over to my distinguished fellow council member, a powerhouse in her own right, and inspiration for so many women in the architecture, engineering, and construction industry. It's so enjoyable and edifying to work with a woman who has started her own business from scratch and is now respected throughout as a thought leader in her community. She has incredible insights and real-world examples to share as president of Sarcor LLC, an engineering design and project management firm, and Celine LLC, a diverse solutions company, and what I like to call my personal rock star friend in Birmingham, Alabama. I'll turn it over to you, Selena.
Thank you, Councilmember McCullough. I appreciate that introduction. Y'all, it is my privilege to serve as chair of the Women in STEM subcommittee and help lead our aspiring subcommittee members to create policy recommendations in support of women innovators. This year, we are approaching our work by framing ourselves around 3 particular focus areas. The first of these focus areas directs the council's attention to best practices, apprenticeships, grants, and the STEM pipeline. The focus area will seek to understand what private and public organizations are doing to keep women in STEM and develop them to entrepreneurs. In support of this focus area, the council will continue to facilitate informational meetings with key stakeholders to gain insights into how women enter, and stay in the STEM pipeline. You see, sometimes the barriers are so strong that women seems like it's too difficult. And so they may enter in, but because they may not know how or where the resources might be, sometimes they quit. And I know it's not easy, like Councilmember McCullough said, I started my business from scratch. I had literally nothing, and it's not easy, but I didn't do it alone. I used resources from the Small Business Administration, as well as mentors, and even read books to try to figure out how to get along this journey. I did not walk this journey alone by any means, and I want to ensure no woman entrepreneur has to walk alone either. The next focus area we are delving into is to ensure the future includes more women entrepreneurs in high growth industries. What does this mean? What has emerged through our subcommittee discussions to date is the importance of getting a sound understanding of the current landscape for those women who are prospectively or actively engaging with high growth industries, as well as emerging issues and unique challenges. In support of this focus area, this council intends to conduct research to determine how women are connecting with high yield and high growth industries. We are also planning to hold a policy roundtable with experts in private, public, and nonprofit sectors to establish learnings, how women are connecting with tomorrow's industries today. So what does this mean to me? Why is it important for us to do this, to make sure that we're changing what this looks like for women in STEM, for women entrepreneurs? I have an 8-year-old daughter, and I take my daughter to as many meetings and expose her to as much as I possibly can. As a matter of fact, yesterday she had her own business meeting for her own company that she wants to launch. And it's very important to me that I'm setting an example to her, and that I'm helping to create policy for her and her friends, so that they could say something like, mommy is helping make an impact to change the world. Or Miss Selena, for example, Alice's mom, as I'm more effectively known, is doing something to help change the world for women who want to be in our industry, in STEM. It means a lot. Representation absolutely does matter. Finally, the subcommittee is also considering a third focus area, zeroing in on the issue of increasing equitable funding opportunities to support more women-led STEM ventures. This focus area is driven by a desire to learn how women can get funding and ownership of their ideas and innovations, and how women skill up their strengths, hire out their growth areas, and get the guidance that they need. It's important to have this support. And in support of this focus area, the council has invited experts to present before our subcommittee meetings to gather important information around how women STEM entrepreneurs' capacity build over time to help bolster the innovation and STEM entrepreneurial pipeline. Between the work that OII and USPTO, the support is there. The question is how women like me can connect to it. Thank you for your time. And I would now like to turn it over to Council Member Kathy Cochran, founding partner of Elevate 2 Consulting and chair of the Inclusion Entrepreneurial Ecosystem Subcommittee. Councilmember Cochran.
Thank you, Councilmember Rogers Dickerson. It's inspiring to hear your story with your daughter. I met her on our trip to DC, and it was fun to see that. As a grandma of 3 granddaughters, it's important that we show them that it can happen. It's been an honor to begin serving as a chair to our recently rebranded Inclusive Entrepreneurial Ecosystem Subcommittee, formerly focused on rural women's entrepreneurship. While we remain focused on the issues and barriers to rural women's business owners, our current council believes it's critically important to ensure no women entrepreneurs in any historically underserved community, whether rural, tribal, non-rural, tribal, rural, or economically distressed urban communities, are left behind. It's why we rebranded and intentionally expanded our scope. Our subcommittee discussions have centered on the importance of ensuring that every woman in business has a seat at the table and a voice in the conversation to help support sustainable ecosystems and wraparound entrepreneurial services for women entrepreneurs in those communities. We continue to conduct research to identify persistent issues and barriers to women's business ownership, particularly in rural, tribal, and other underserved communities. To reinforce that work, our focus this year primarily covers 3 areas. First, strategies and tactics for bridging important service gaps, including ensuring affordable and equitable access to childcare, paid family and medical leave, as well as access to broadband and digital technology for everyone. It's important to understand, to improve our understanding of these services, we're engaging in a number of activities over the next months. For example, we will hold a couple of policy roundtables at the Association of Women's Business Centers July conference. We're happy to be a part of that great conference again this year. The first roundtable addresses how do we conquer the digital divide? And the second one continues to build on the learning from last year's roundtable on paid family medical leave opportunities. In respect to affordable and available childcare, the council is examining bipartisan bills that would empower more nonprofit providers, greater support, and access to capital. We are also exploring the importance of ensuring accurate data collection and service mapping to make sure that we are accurately understanding service gaps and solving to the right issues. Our second focus area for this subcommittee concerns women business owner needs and wants in terms of gaining affordable access to back office support and a skilled workforce. By participating in research and public engagement in events such as NABO's Advocacy Days, and as already mentioned, NWBC's Leadership Conference, this subcommittee will have an opportunity to learn more about how resource partners can serve as a conduit for women business owners looking to build their team's capacity, access to critical services and federal resources, as well as diverse sources of capital. I just attended a 3-day women's business summit in rural North Dakota, my home state, and the primary discussions were centered on, guess what? Operational excellence. How do we get better at what we do to grow our businesses? Recruiting strong teams in small communities, and access to great business support, such as bankers, accountants, legal. It should be no surprise that access to these services for our rural and underserved business owners are more challenging, even in a digital world. As a committee, we believe we have a pretty good idea of what programs are working and what should be expanded or newly developed. But we look forward to learning more from our future NWBC commissioned research projects to determine which local and state program models could be replicated and tailored to serve a more diverse audience at the national level. The work that is happening at the local level, which I see every day, is amazing. We will continue to ask, how do we expand access to these great programs to more of our business owners? And our third focus is rather complex. We are working to identify coordination efforts and successful partnership models, which are helping deploy a myriad of federal entrepreneurial resources and information about funding and federal contracting opportunities to women small business owners in every community, including those facing local governance challenges. Our subcommittee members continue to hear from business owners about the barriers that still exist at the local level that impact growth and economic opportunities, such as regulations, zoning, biases, access to capital, etc. In short, this is about strengthening federal coordination to better support local governance and bolster sustainable, inclusive entrepreneurial ecosystems. Through NWBC's commissioned third-party research, we will continue our ongoing analysis of federal partnerships and through informational meetings with experts and dedicated ecosystem builders, we will seek to identify scenarios where siloing of resources may be occurring between local governance, small business resource partners, and government officials. I know, as someone who's a business owner and who also engages with brilliant women business owners trying to grow their businesses, we continue to discuss, explore, and analyze how we share the economic impact that we make at the local level. And how do we open the opportunities for greater growth and impact for all women business owners? Our subcommittees are excited and inspired to continue our deliberation and public engagement efforts to ensure we continue to build on the council's successes of years past and identify actionable and impactful recommendations that are responsive to the current post-pandemic environment. It's now my pleasure to turn the next segment of this public meeting to my esteemed fellow council members, Pamela Prince-Eason and Katika Roy, who will moderate today's policy panel. Over to you, Pam and Katika. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks again to Tanae, to all of our fellow council members, especially to Roberta, Selena, and Kathy, who did an absolutely fantastic job opening today's meeting and sharing important updates in each of our policy subcommittees and the work that they have done to date. We continue to explore some of the most important issues that are faced by women entrepreneurs today. And that really does require a lot of research and many conversations to understand the progress we have made and the challenges that we still face. So we appreciate you being here with us today as we go through much of that information. As president and CEO of WeMake, the Women's Business Enterprise National Council, I can share that we focus on improvements in WOSB certification and increasing contracting opportunities on a day-to-day basis. But we have not done this alone. And as Tanae so wonderfully honored Miss Candace Waterman this morning or earlier today, we have done a lot of the work that we do through our partnership with Women Impacting Public Policy. Candace was a dear friend and also a real mover and shaker and supporter of all things needed for women's entrepreneurship. So I just want to bring out that the great work that we do at WeBank has been in partnership with WIP and with great leadership from Candace Waterman as well. So I look forward to learning from our OSCBs today. They're experts that help to identify some of the challenges and the best practices that can help us strengthen our current recommendations. And as we draft things, we rely on them to give us the inputs that are important to honing up kind of the best things that we can do for women entrepreneurs. I'm so thrilled to be co-moderating this wonderful policy panel, which will actually serve as our roundtable for 2023 for access to capital and opportunity. So again, you're part of a very important panel today. We appreciate you being here and giving us your input. Without further ado, I'd like to hand it over to one of our newest council members, my fellow council member, Katika Roy, to introduce herself and share more about this discussion, as well as introduce today's expert presenters.
Thank you, Pam. I'm very excited to be here for many reasons, both as a female founder and CEO who has raised capital, as well as the daughter of an immigrant and a refugee and a first-generation American. I, as an award-winning gender economist and former Fortune 500 global executive, data scientist, and founder and CEO of Pipeline, I'm very interested in creating efficiencies and learning more about how we create efficiencies to ensure real inclusion of more women, particularly women of color, in federal contracting opportunities. In 2022, Pipeline, my company, published their updated Equity for All report. And we found in our original report that across 4,000 companies in 29 countries, that for every 10% increase in intersectional gender equity, gender plus race and ethnicity and age, there's a 1% to 2% increase in revenue. And since that time, we've collected over a billion data points. Additionally, that report notes that since 2020, we've added 36 years to the time to gender equity for global gender equity. And in North America, we're still 6 decades away from gender equity. This is happening at a time despite the fact that 40% of US households in the United States with children under the age of 18, moms are the breadwinners. So, and the status quo also has deep implications for women who have not yet returned to the workforce, including those considering or who have pivoted to entrepreneurship. And actually, as of the last jobs report, if you control for population and labor force participation, we still have 682,000 women missing from the labor force. And if we brought them back, we could actually close the worker to jobs gap by 17%. A couple other things I just want to note. The President's Executive Order 13985, advancing racial equity and support for underserved communities through the federal government, aims to promote equity for underserved communities by making federal contracting and procurement opportunities more readily available to all eligible vendors in impacted communities. To support this effort, the Office of Management and Budget, the OMB, issued memo M-22-03, advancing equity in federal procurement. Also notable is the Inflation Reduction Act, which was signed into law on August 16th, 2022, which is aimed squarely at building a better America, delivering on President Biden's vision for making sure the United States, powered by American workers, remains the global leader in clean energy, technology, manufacturing, and innovation. The Inflation Reduction Act's $370 billion in investments will lower energy costs for families and small businesses, accelerate private investment in clean energy solutions in every sector of the economy and every corner of our country. Strengthen supply chains for everything from critical minerals to efficient electric appliances, and create good paying jobs and new economic opportunities for workers. And now we will have each of the OSBDU expert panelists introduce themselves round robin style.
Okay, if all of our OSBDU panelists could come off mute and be available to us, we'll go in the order of the slide that's located here. And so, Alyssa, would you like to go first?
Soon as I could get off of mute, yes. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Elisa Sheard with the U.S. Small Business Administration. I am actually not in an Office of Small Disadvantaged Business Utilization. I am actually from the SBA's Office for the Women-Owned Small Business Federal Contract Program. I am the director of that certification process and the support for encouraging and advocating the usage of the program and contract opportunities for women-owned small businesses. And I'm happy to join you all today.
Lisa, we thank you for the great work that you and your team do. There's been real change that's occurred because of the Women-Owned Small Business Program, and that leadership that you provide is absolutely amazing. So thank you so much. Calvin?
Hi, how you doing? Calvin Mitchell, Department of Education. I am the OSBU director here. I was appointed now like 3 years ago, and I'm really excited about engaging the discussion, and thank you so much for having me with these distinguished panelists.
Thank you so much. Denise?
Good afternoon or good morning, folks, depending on where you're located. My name is Denise Benjamin Sermons, and I currently serve as the director for the Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization at the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. I've been in this position for just over 5 years, and I am really pleased and excited to be part of this public meeting and having the benefit of hearing all of your exciting initiatives and the great things you all have afoot, and just pleased to be part of this conversation.
Thank you, Denise. That's one of the great roles of the National Women's Business Council, is our ability to bring together different parties so that they can discuss what's going on, because that intercommunication is what makes us all so much better and so much stronger. Tamara?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tamara Miles, and I'm the Deputy Director for Small Business Programs, or the OSTBU at the U.S. Department of Energy. I've been in the role about, I think, 2.5 years. Prior to that, I managed one of the field offices in terms of the contracting function. And so I really love and enjoy focusing on all things small business, and it's a pleasure to be with you all this afternoon.
Great, wonderful to have you here. Last but certainly not least is Shelley.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shelley Thomas, and I'm here representing the Department of Health and Human Services, OSTBU office. I currently serve as the acting deputy director within HHS OSTBU, and I am a newbie to that position. I'm about 1 month. Prior to that, my major responsibilities was implementing policy and also advocating on behalf of small businesses for prime contractors and holding them accountable. I am so happy to be a part of this panel today, and I look forward to sharing best practices and resources here on this call. Thank you.
Shelley, welcome to the OSTBU family. You've got a lot of great brothers and sisters to work with here, so this is wonderful. Okay, well, the plan will be, Kadika and I have a series of questions that we want to make sure that we ask all of you. And so what we'll do is we'll be alternating the questions. That way you can kind of follow us easily to see what's going to happen. But the first thing that we really want all of you to do, and we don't have to have everyone answer every question, but the first thing we would really like for each of you to do, and we can go in the same order we just went in, would be if you just tell us a little bit about your actual position. And when you're talking about it, kind of tell us where it's situated within the agency that you're in, and then the efforts that you have around women specifically. And we recognize that minority women have even more challenges. So where you have some uniquenesses around support for minority women, we'd love to hear that too. So basically that comes down to your position, kind of where it reports in, and then what you're doing for women. So can we go ahead and get started again on that? And Alyssa, you have the whole overall program. So do you want to say a few words, or you want to pass it over to the OSTBUs?
I'll just add a couple of additional items. And as I shared, my office handles the certification process for those that are seeking to participate in the WASB Federal Contracting Program. We are also responsible for getting outreach and making awareness for those that are women-owned small businesses that don't know that this program exists, don't know what the purpose is for. So we are responsible for engaging in that. And then my team also does training for many of the OSTBUs that are on this call for their acquisition teams, and teaching them how to utilize and engage with this community of program participants. So that is also a part of our responsibilities with our small yet mighty team of analysts and specialists that help support these various items. And so our role is advocating and encouraging the usage of the program by way of doing and conducting these trainings. To go to your other additional item, as far as for minority women-owned small businesses, we don't have specifically a program for minority-owned businesses. We established a designation of economically disadvantaged status, and those firms that are participating in our program can request to also be certified under that separate designation. And those firms that are given that designation can also participate in technical assistance resources that are available through other SBA programs. So I just wanted to highlight that those that are EDWSB, are economically disadvantaged women-owned small businesses, are able to take advantage of trainings, counseling, other resources and services that are made available through funds that are granted through SBA.
That's great. And you also play a very important role while the SBA is a certifier for the WOSB program as well. There are 4 third parties that also do certification, and those third parties have their oversight done by Alyssa's office. So great job on that as well. Calvin?
Yes, Calvin Mitchell. I am the director of the Oswego office of Small Disadvantaged Business Utilization. I report directly to Deputy Secretary Cindy Martin. And so it's Secretary Miguel Cardona, Deputy Secretary Cindy Martin. I report directly to her. Monthly, we're talking about strategies of how we are going to increase the utilization of small business within the Department of Education's cadre of contracts. And one thing that we're doing that's a little bit unique here at the Department of Education, we started last fiscal year an initiative called CLASS, because we're the Department of Education, which is creating and leveraging small business strategies for small business success, acquisition strategies for small business success. And what this program does is it takes data analytics and applies it to what we're spending, and also the population of small businesses that are out there. And then we're identifying small business opportunities earlier in the acquisition process than what we traditionally would do in terms of identifying small businesses. So this year, we've been focusing on women-owned small business, not because we're missing the goal, but because we have less women-owned small businesses that are getting awards as of today, as opposed to what the population size was 3 years ago. So of course, even if we're making the goal with less businesses, that's not good. So we really going to be focused on more women-owned small businesses and more women-owned small businesses in the technology field, because we know women-owned small businesses in especially digital services area have been tremendously underrepresented. So we're looking to change that narrative, and we're going to do it through expiring contracts and new contracts that are going to be emerging in FY24.
Calvin, that's wonderful. I love the thoughtful approach that you're doing to this. You know, we encourage this in both the public and the private sector. So really great to hear about this. And I love, my mother was a teacher, so I love the CLASS program that you've got. That sounds absolutely wonderful.
But there's so much you can do with it. You can be classy, you can have class, you can be in class. It's just so much you can do with that.
I love it. I love it. Beautiful. Denise.
Sure, and I love it too. Calvin is great with really innovative ideas that are playful, that are fun, but most importantly are effective. So I really appreciate that. So it's an interesting question, and it's actually an important one, because offices of small and disadvantaged business utilizations are creatures of statute. There's a very prescriptive statutory provision that mandates what we look like, what we're called, and who we report to. And one of the things that's specifically spelled out in Section 15K of the Small Business Act is that the director of each federal OSDBU has to report to either the administrator or secretary, or deputy administrator or deputy secretary. And each year, every OSDBU has to certify that we are complying with that provision. And so in compliance with that specific statutory provision, we at EPA, we're located, the Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business is located within the administrator's office. And I, as the director, report directly to the deputy administrator, who really is responsible for the operations of the agency. And that's really critical, because without that alliance and alignment with the deputy administrator, a lot of times, a lot of our work will get lost in the noise and the shuffle of some of the other media-specific priorities. So it's really key for us to have that access to the most senior leadership. And like Calvin, I meet monthly with the deputy administrator, and I have access to her on an ongoing basis whenever necessary. And like all of the OSDBUs, our primary responsibility is for advocating for and promoting small businesses. At EPA, in addition to the contracting piece that we support, we also help small businesses with environmental and regulatory compliance. And so we basically cover all of the needs for small businesses within our little office. And we have a number of exciting things that are afoot that don't necessarily specifically target women-owned small businesses, but really focus on identifying where the contracting opportunities are within EPA, and then matching those opportunities with the available small businesses in each of the statutory categories for small businesses, the socioeconomic categories, to include women-owned small businesses, of course. And historically, we've done really well in meeting the women-owned small business goal. The one exception, unfortunately, was last year, but that was as a result of a confluence of circumstances that made us just miss that goal. But we're really gunning for it this year so we can continue the long tradition of the agency in really providing excellent support to the women-owned small business community.
Thank you, Denise. And you have had a long history. I think for any of us who watch the scorecards, you've had a long history of success. And we certainly understand that there are times when things happen that it impacts that scorecard. But again, thank you for that ongoing commitment to inclusion. Again, we look forward to finding out more about what's happening specifically as opportunities. So thank you for that. Tamara.
All right, hello. And certainly echo all that Denise, noted in terms of the statutory requirement for the OSTBU and where the directorship sits in the organization. And certainly we're complying with that. Our director, Ron Pierce, reports to the Deputy Secretary of Energy, David Turk, who is, we of course are led by the Honorable Jennifer Granholm. Both Ms. Granholm and Mr. Turk are strong advocates of small business. I know that Ron meets monthly with the two of them, or certainly with S2 is what we call the Deputy Secretary S2. I know he meets monthly with him, but in his role as the OSTBU director, he's considered a -1. So our organization is referred to as SB1. And all of the program offices have a -1 as far as their leadership is concerned. And -1s meet with the Deputy Secretary, and often I believe the Secretary joins on a weekly basis. So there are communications that are going on and opportunities for Ron to speak to small business interests and advancing what we're trying to do across the platform in terms of the support of small business. We are the agency's advocate for small business. Right now, our annual procurement spend is about $45 billion annually. 1 in 4 procurement dollars is going to small business, so 25% of spend. And that is considering both prime and subcontracting opportunities. We have the mission to maximize opportunities for smalls, and we certainly are emphasizing more socioeconomic awards, so to WASBs and others. And we're doing that through a variety of ways. We recently establish program management positions for all socioeconomic categories within the OSTBU. So we have a single point of contact at this point in terms of making sure that we're promulgating policies and executing on those policies across the platform. Efforts to improve access to information and updating our forecast, as well as developing strategic partnerships with other agencies, in particular Commerce and the Minority Business Development Agency, MBDA. We've recently signed on to an MOU that really establishes how we're going to partner and collaborate to make sure that we are infusing minority-owned enterprises, including women-led enterprises, into performing the department's mission. So really excited about that collaboration with MBDA. We're also working to expand our DOE Mentor Protege program, and with increasing emphasis on socioeconomic small businesses having those protege opportunities. So those are some of the things we're doing, and certainly looking to achieve the WASB goal. It has been elusive to date for the department, but we're still chasing after it. But in terms of dollars, I would say we are making a significant impact. In FY22, we awarded, considering prime and sub, over $2 billion of contracts to women and small businesses. So certainly that's a significant dollar amount, achieving 4.3% of spend going to WASB. So with that, I'll close and ready for the next question.
Okay, sounds great. Again, you have a long history of really being focused on the WOSB goal as well as all small businesses. And so congratulations on your overall 25%. And we look forward to achieving the current goal for women-owned small business. And as soon as you get that, we're going to take it up higher so you can give us even more.
That's what happens. We're ready for it.
Yeah, good. We're excited. Okay, Shelley, can you take us home on this one?
Absolutely. Yes, at the Department of Health and Human Services, as well as to others, we are also directly aligned with our Deputy Secretary, Ms. Andrea Palm, in which my director, Mr. Shannon Jackson, he meets with her quite often. And she's really given some great mandates to the Office of Small Business, Disadvantaged Business Utilization, and increasing our women-owned small business performance goals, as well as our industrial base. So he's really have been working hard in regards to that. We also are aligned with the Office of Acquisitions within the Department of Health and Human Services. We work closely with Ms. Katrina Brisbane and also with the heads of contracting activities with the 11 operational divisions within the Department of Health and Human Services. So one of the things that we really took action on from Ms. Andrea Palms in growing the industrial base, we took a look at our internal database where we store a lot of our small business contractors. And out of 9,000 prime contractors in there, I want to boast that at least 3,000 of them qualified as a WASB or ED WASB. So we're excited that, you know, the numbers are increasing in regards to our women-owned small businesses that are available to support our requirements at Health and Human Services, but we want more. So that's why we are here for these opportunities. We have partnered with several organizations over the years where we provide major outreach and support and discuss our requirements with Health and Human Services. We are directly aligned, and many of us are members of WIP. So we enjoy educating our counterparts there. We also were participants of the Black-Owned and Women's Collective Second Annual Conference that was held in Charleston, South Carolina. We also served as panelists with the WVE, the Women Veterans Entrepreneurs of Color Initiative Conference this year. And we take the time to at least twice a year, have conversation with women-owned small businesses. We offer a virtual office hours where we just want to talk to you about any of the barriers that you may have in having contract actions within the department. And so those have been very beneficial in helping us to increase our industrial base, as well as increasing our women-owned small business performance goals, even though we are meeting them, but we also look for more here as well. So thank you.
Shelley, it's wonderful to meet you. I think Health and Human Services is in great hands with you joining the group. You sound like a pro, so very exciting. So Katika, let me throw it over to you and you go for our panelists and ask them the next thing that's important to you.
You bet. So, I'd like to know from each of the panelists, and Alyssa, I think we'll start with you to give the overall perspective. But where have you identified challenges and best practices for women business owners in accessing contracting opportunities? So Alyssa, if we can start with you and then we'll move forward.
Well, there are a couple of challenges that I would highlight. The first one being is for those that are looking to participate, it's getting certified. And so the certification process is really important if you want to participate in the limited opportunities that contracting officers have available to them. So they can set aside opportunities just for those that are participating in the program. And then if certain conditions are met, they can sole source those opportunities to a women-owned small business business owner, but got to get certified first. And we are seeing an amazing number of applicants for that process. We are steady back at about 900 applications a month. So it has not gone down, which is awesome to see, but it's so important that everyone that is listening also takes that first step of getting that certified process completed. Other challenges is really kind of understanding how to master engaging the government. You have an OSDBU panel here today that really will be sharing how it's best to engage with their particular agency, because the way you may enter the door at Department of Education and what they use there may be very different than what is at EPA. So it does take a little bit of nuance and knowing, like, where are my potential customers and which agencies should I talk with and what is important for that particular agency and how I engage with them. So knowing those best practices is always critical and important for our women-owned small businesses on the call today. So I'll leave it to my OSDBU panel to give more specifics, but I want to highlight those two things.
Great. Thank you, Alyssa. I really appreciate that. Tamara, I'm actually going to start with you to answer that question. So if you want to go ahead and answer about specifically for your agency, where have you identified challenges and best practices for women business owners in accessing contracting opportunities?
Yes, thank you. I would say that the biggest challenge is just the fact that DOE is a very large organization with a very diverse mission and really a decentralized business model. We've got, two different senior procurement executives, over 20 heads of contracting activity, and many different platforms in terms of where to access opportunities. DOE is also very unique in comparing to other federal agencies in terms of the business model itself, whereby we have managing and operating contractors, and 80% of procurement dollars are going through the M&O or other facility management contracts. So in saying that, it's noting that small business spend is mostly coming from subcontracting within the agency. And in understanding those opportunities within the M&Os, it requires a registration with each of the 17 M&Os, adding another 10 facility management contractors. So there's all different avenues for getting access to the information. So that's a challenge, right up front. There is something that we are working on to mitigate that issue, and that is to develop a centralized platform that will be the DOE business forecast. And we've got a working group that's been established to tackle the issue and providing a public-facing website that would ingest information from all of the M&Os, all the program offices, those that are issuing contracts, and those that have financial assistance opportunities with grants and loan guarantees and other business instruments that we have. It will be now on a single platform where folks can search, filter, and search for opportunities. So we're really excited about that project that the OSDBU is co-leading with the senior procurement executive. So very excited about that. I do think that is a best practice across government, having a really friendly, intuitive forecast, and we're looking to develop that for energy. So that's one of the major things, and I think that's going to make a big impact on improving accessibility information.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking as an entrepreneur, yes, it will, because we don't have a lot of resources. So that's great. So Shelley, can we go to you next?
Absolutely. One of the things that we took notice of here at Health and Human Services when we came on was that there need to be better education to the acquisition workforce about the WASB program and also the other socioeconomic programs. One of the things we looked at is, prior to the pandemic, overall, HHS had over 40 billion, originally 25 billion in total spend for the agency. Due to COVID, that number increased to over 40 billion. So we had to do a lot of hiring of personnel to keep up with the acquisitions that were coming in. So one of the things is that probably went to the wayside is the training of our acquisition workforce. So one of the things that Mr. Jackson has been very vigilant about is educating the acquisition workforce, specifically about the WASB program and the benefits of it in our internal acquisitions. Also educating them on really how easy it is to, provide contract actions to the WASB and ED-WASB program internally. So what we have been doing over the past year is offering training to our acquisition workforce. We have done 2 consolidated trainings along with our partners at SBA to come in and provide that training. But we also, as an OSDBU within ourselves, we also go to each specific operational division within HHS, and we have those little intimate discussions to answer those questions, because sometimes it's when you're actually in that contract itself that you may have a question of who can I go to? And we want to be readily available to present the capable small businesses, women-owned small businesses that can support these particular contracting actions. And we really also focus on in the pre-planning of our requirements, just like Ms. Miles says, having that reliable forecasting for our women-owned small businesses and WOSBs, and being able to advocate from the beginning based on our alliances and relationships with the women-owned small businesses that we currently partner with.
That's great. Thank you, Shelley.
Sure.
Denise?
Sure, I agree with Shelley as a generic matter. The challenges in the familiarity with the WASB program. And I think it's a little different from some of the other contracting vehicles because there are limited NAICS that this particular program is available to. And so anytime you add additional layer or nuances to a program, it makes it that much more difficult for contracting officials who have multiple, often competing priorities that they're trying to reconcile to even want to utilize the program. So making it as simple and as accessible as possible for them to be to find the program appealing to utilize with the press of the work that they're facing, I think it is a challenge. And then, let's be honest, the competition between the various socioeconomic programs, particularly the SDB 8A in particular, that has that just such appealing sole source and other 8A mechanisms that make it really easy for contracting officers to utilize. I think that does present a little bit of a challenge for the WASB program. The other thing that you mentioned, Katia, was the lack of resources, which applies across the board to all small businesses. And so having dedicated resources to be able to identify those opportunities that best match your particular business is tough, but it's required. You just really have to do your homework to figure out where the opportunities are. And that does mean responding to sources sought and requests for information, but making that business calculus as to which are the ones that you really want to go after is critical, because that really does provide the foundation for determining which potential opportunities will be set aside and reserved for the WASB community. And in that regard, what we've heard from a lot of the women-owned small businesses is that they really want more opportunities to connect with the decision makers, both programs as well as the contracting officials, so that they can present their business solutions, their products and their services, that they're aware of them and that they can have some confidence that they can meet the mission needs of the program or the region, in our case, the BPA. And so one of the things that we've done is to require more vendor engagement on the part of our contracting officials and programs. And we've established metrics that they have to meet each year. And we track that on a monthly basis. And we provide a report that we share with the most senior of leadership across the agency so that they're tracking where their organization is in meeting the metric, and that they're holding them accountable to connect with the small business communities, in particular, the socioeconomic ones, to include the women-owned small businesses. And so this is an opportunity for you all to have face time with those that are making decisions as to, firstly, what their procurement needs are, because oftentimes they don't know because they're not as familiar with the federal marketplace and the solutions that are out there to meet their needs, but also the sources that are available that really offer really innovative products and solutions for them. And so while we're doing that, we're really urging the small business community that before they meet with our contracting and program officials, to be prepared to understand what they're buying and how your solutions can meet their needs, so that we're not wasting their time and we're also not wasting yours. And so really familiarizing yourself with the acquisition solutions, as you heard from some of my other colleagues, but we also have other tools at EPA that will help give you all a sense of what we're buying, who's buying what, when it's becoming due, and how that can help you with your marketing strategy.
Great, thank you. And Kelvin?
It's always hard to go after Denise because she always has such great points. So I could always say ditto. But one thing that's fascinating about the Department of Education is we quickly realize there's not a problem with the women-owned small business pool. The problem is with us, right? And making sure that not only are we making opportunities for women-owned small businesses, but making meaningful work available for women-owned small businesses. Because when we looked at the cadre of contracts that we were awarding, a lot of them were administrative related services. And so we wanted to move that shift. We wanted to move and shift it to more substantive work that is an integral part of what we're doing day to day in the department. So it really takes a pivot in thinking, but part of what we've been doing is really a two-pronged strategy. The one is making sure that internally we're creating and cultivating an environment where small businesses can thrive and women-owned small businesses can thrive, and that the type of requirements that are coming out are substantive requirements that can really help women-owned small businesses really bring that technical approach and technical knowledge in the areas of IT services. So what we've been doing is trying to identify some of the requirements that could either be broken apart through a partial set aside or just outright set aside of a new contract. And then really looking at those NAICS codes because we have to be sensitive to make sure that those NAICS codes are aligned with what SBA has released for the program. And then on top of doing that, we are now trying to put on the forecast a women-owned small business set aside, which is really changing the way that we've engaging the marketplace. Because it really wasn't as collaborative as it should have been. Because what would happen is the decision of a set aside would be happening at the contracting officer's level. And then subsequently, solicitation would be coming in with less than 30 days of that announcement, if an announcement was even made. And so it led to short time periods or timetables to respond to solicitations, and we had low responses. So now what we're trying to do is forecast, put on the forecast the women-owned small business set aside, our RFIs or our source of SALT notices. We'll say, hey, we're looking for you, women-owned small business, under this NAICS code, which allows for more time for teaming, which allows for more time for partnering, which allows for more collaboration and more planning. So there will be more engagement and more participation. The second part of it is we've been hitting the road doing outreach. So I try to make myself a staple at all the WIP events. I try to make sure that any women-owned small business event, I'm there and present, just so we can reduce the barrier. One of the biggest problems is a lot of people don't have assets where they can be able to afford a BD person, right? A business development person. So we need to make sure we reduce the barriers and increase the access, right? So by doing that, we are able to try to promote more interest in the department and make it look like we are actually available for engagement. So those are some of the things that we're doing here.
Oh, that's great. I can tell you as a CEO, you're like always the business development person, even if you hire someone. It never goes away. It never goes away. All right, Pam, I'm going to hand it back to you.
Thank you, Katika. Great job and wonderful responses from everyone. In the interest of time, I'm going to jump us forward a little bit. I've been looking at the set of questions and things we wanted to share with you, and our OSDBUs have done a great job of weaving in some of the things. Like, we definitely hear that contract bundling can be an issue for our women-owned small businesses. And I heard a few solutions like Calvin, where you were talking about being more thoughtful about how can we ensure that we find kind of the right scope of work to go there. So I'm going to skip through those just to make sure that we don't miss some of the major thoughts we wanted to get out here. So for everyone's benefit, I think what we'll do is let's talk just a little bit about kind of key acquisition platforms, and really understanding certification status and finding that, because you're doing such a great job, especially in the SBA office and in the WOSB office, of really getting tools in alignment so that you can see who these WOSBs are. I think we have a really strong process, both at the SBA and outside, to ensure certification. So let me give you a little background that the president, and I'm going to have to read this, so I won't be looking at you. The President's Executive Order 13985, Advancing Racial Equity and Support for Underserved Communities through the Federal Government, aims to promote equity for underserved communities by making federal contracting and procurement opportunities more readily available to all eligible vendors in an impacted community. To support this, the Office of Management and Budget, OMB, issued Memo M-22-03, Advancing Equity in Federal Procurement, that in part requires the development of data tools to support achievement of government-wide goals related to equity of federal procurement. And I have heard each of you mention in what you've discussed so far the advances that have really been occurring in this space. And I can tell you, external to your work on kind of the WBE side of that, we can see that there is improvement and change going on. So I want you to know that. So one of the tools that the government-wide procurement equity tool, the government-wide procurement equity tool, is a market research tool for federal users to find the available vendors. And we've heard you saying it's not that they're not there, it's something else in the process and that sort of thing. So we can tell that you're using that, and view kind of obligation data and that sort of stuff. So what we'd really like to know, and not everyone has to answer this, if a couple of you just want to pop on and give us an answer, to what extent do you feel like you are leveraging these tools, and do you believe it is helping you to better achieve the government contracting goals?
Pam, I want to jump in and just add a couple of things before everyone shares about the usage of the tool. Because I think it's so critical and important that we weave in some of the key points that Calvin expressed about culture change and about the way that we do business has to change across the federal government. This administration's efforts in increasing equity in procurement is so important. So some of the things that SBA has done is increase the list of eligible industries for the WASB program. What was only 444 NAICS codes has now increased to over 700 industries that are now populated and available for contracting officer to utilize. We've done the research, we've done the studies and showing that there's continued growth and underrepresentation. So we have to expand that list to make it available for contracting officers to engage more women-owned small businesses in those industries. So it's important to do that. The training, in order for us to increase that market research, people buy from who they like, who they trust. Some agencies have only been using the same pool of vendors for many, many decades because that's comfortable for them. They know what they can get, they know what they can rely on. So now these tools have been put forward to be able to increase market research, but to introduce new entrants into the marketplace and rebuilding our industrial base. We have to take a different approach, and if we expect different results. So I just wanted to highlight those things, and I'll bring our OSDBUs on to kind of highlight how they're using their tools, these tools, to kind of bridge that gap in our industrial base.
Great summary. So do we have one or two agencies that would like to answer that question for us?
I'll be happy to jump in. There are great tools that the Office of Federal Procurement Policy has been working on to make it easier for us to expand the utilization of socioeconomic businesses in the federal government's acquisitions as a whole. And they're terrific, and they've been doing a lot of training on them. I have to say, as a personal matter, we at EPA have not yet had the benefit of utilizing a lot of those tools. We're still familiarizing ourselves with them, but I think they're going to be really increasingly valuable in the years to come. We have been working on our own tools that have proven to be really effective in identifying additional businesses that are available for awards. For example, we have a really robust vendor database system that we encourage small businesses that are ready, willing, and able to work with EPA to register on. And we utilize that as a portal for doing a lot of market research for disseminating information about upcoming opportunities. And so that has proven for us to be really, really effective. And so I encourage folks to just type in vendor database at epa.gov and you'll pull it up and make sure you're registered. And we're doing more and more with that. You can even use the search features to identify partners in the industries in which you operate. The other thing is we introduced a real-time database that I don't think we have anything of that nature across the federal government that's open to all of the agency, that's tracking on not only an EPA-wide, but on a program and region organization specific basis on where we are with each of the categories of small businesses. That's been really helpful, and that's really promoting procurement equity, because they're seeing where there are gaps and vulnerability in our goal achievements. So it really does help promote it. And just last, I just wanted to mention, as an additional tool for you all in identifying opportunities at EPA, is our active contracts list, which is comprehensive of absolutely all of the contracts that we currently have at EPA. And while we've done a lot with our forecast to make sure that it's more comprehensive, timely, and complete, frankly, this active contracts list is another tool, because it has all of the information about when these contracts are coming due, who's currently performing them, who the program is, who the assigned contracting officer is. So just another tool that you all could utilize for helping to identify opportunities that are coming up at the agency. So I just wanted to share some of those resources. But yeah, they're great tools that OMB is developing, and we're looking forward to utilizing them in the future.
That's great. Thank you, Denise. Very detailed. Okay, we really are running behind. There's just one more opportunity, and I think we might do this as a lightning round. So Kadika and I are going to hit you with a couple of things, and just like kind of one word answers. So everybody be ready. We'll call your name quickly and just grab that answer. I think one of the things really critical is what we had prepared as question 8 for all of you around the cost of bidding on contracts. I think we have to address that while we're here, and just help everyone who's in the audience understand that, you know, there is a high cost for WOSBs and EdWOSBs to be able to compete for business. And sometimes, you know, that's too much of a risk for them with their business in order for what the potential return might be if they're not heavily considered. And so we just wonder, could you really quickly answer us if there's anything unique that you have that could help to mitigate a little bit of the cost of trying to get that business from your department? So Calvin, I'll go to you first.
Yeah, just one thing that I would say is a little unique to the Department of Education. Almost all of our contracts are going through the GSA schedule.
Okay.
That they may provide some flexibility to some businesses.
Excellent, Calvin. Denise?
Same. And one thing that you all can do is be very selective in what you decide to go after. Go after the things that you really think you have a shot at. So making that internal decision making as to what makes sense for your business.
Perfect. Tamara?
I was certainly going to note what Denise just noted. I think that is very critical in, kind of reducing the cost impact. But another item is to consider teaming. I think sharing that cost with another entity that, may have a complementary or completely different skill set that would bolster your proposal and perhaps improve your chance of winning, is trying to go after opportunities as a team. Additionally, where the government is providing, early engagement through RFIs or draft RFPs or sessions where you can have conversations with acquisition personnel to get a better idea of how your capability matches with the requirement to do that due diligence early on and making those decisions on what to go after and not to go after.
Wonderful. And Shelley.
All right, mine would be to really look at those acquisitions that are below the SAT. Make sure to capture many of those contracting actions, to build your performance for other acquisitions that are over SAT. But also just being strategic with your company and aligning your capabilities with those requirements that really align with your business and what your product or service is. Always utilize your OSDBU small business specialists to help you align your capabilities with the requirements that are within HHS. And we really have a background on those acquisitions, where they are going. And we really will assist you, with whether it is in your interest to even apply. And so, like I said, make those relationships with your small business specialists.
Perfect. Great messages. Okay, we're coming to our final question, which Katika is going to take you through, which is, as we prepared at the very end of the panel, we were going to ask you kind of for that one last piece of information you want to share. So I'll turn it over to Katika. She'll call on each of you, and then Elisa will let you wrap it up for the whole group. And then you can turn it back to me. So Katika, you want to call on our panelists?
Sure. Question 11, just
12.
to make sure that 12. Okay.
Your final piece of information.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. So, what advice would you want to share with women who are looking to contract with your agency? And so, Calvin, we'll start with you.
Just continue to go to small business customer experience ed. If you just Google that, small business customer experience ed, you'll get registered in our database. We will push out announcements of events we have and just get you engaged in our process, because we're looking forward to partnering with you.
Great. Denise?
Same, register in our vendor database, check out our forecast and our contracting list, and be prepared. So when you meet with OSDBU, as well as any other program or regional official, that you know what best value you're bringing to the table.
Great. Tamara?
I would say that, or what I've said recently at these types of events, is to practice the 3 Ps. First is be precise in what you go after, and be prepared when you do hone in on what you want to go after. Second P is be persistent. Be persistent in understanding the requirements, coordinating with the OSDBU office, stakeholder organizations, to make sure that you are ready, to go after the efforts. And then finally, be patient. I think that working with the government can be pretty complex. You have to kind of be prepared for the long game. So be patient. And then I'd also like to just quickly provide a plug for the DOE Small Business Forum and Expo that's going to be in New Orleans next month. Registration is still open for that. It's going to be a great opportunity for the WASBs and others that are on the line to engage with our program offices and major contractors. So please do join us for that. And again, I'll put the registration information in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you. Shelley?
I would say to know your company's abilities, know your company's worth, and know that your company has a voice. And here at HHS OSDBU, we are here to listen to you, to provide you with those opportunities that align directly with your business. We have included a lot of information on our website, a small business customer experience at HHS. So we look forward to our numbers increasing for women-owned small businesses and EDWOSBs in our internal database as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Alyssa, I think we're gonna end with you. So what advice do you have for women looking to contract with the federal government?
Oh, awesome question. I would highlight strategic alliances. Teaming was highlighted, subcontracting, that prime sub relationship, but I also want to highlight our mentor protege program. And maybe it is kind of getting their capacity support from a mentor that can really help leverage and reduce those costs that a small business and a woman-owned small businesses may be experienced. I would be remiss if I did not highlight our upcoming Challenge Her program. In July, we will be in Chicago, Illinois, for women-owned small businesses that are interested in entering the federal marketplace or expanding in the federal marketplace. Challenge Her will be in Chicago. We will be giving what Candace has hoped for with women impacting policy. It's just efforts. It's full support from SBA, because I know in her heart, she was truly passionate about women-owned small businesses. And I shared with her many of my same passion to help support that community.
That's great. Thank you. Pam, I'll let you close us out.
Okay, Katika, thank you so much. So the entire National Women's Business Council would really like to thank all of you who have been part of this OSTBU panel. Elisa, Calvin, Shelley, Denise, Tamara, the community getting to hear from you makes such a difference. Thank you for the great work that you're doing. I can hear the progress that's being made each and every day by the steps that you're taking to make the opportunities more and more available. So as someone who's looking for that all the time, I can tell you that we are seeing it. So thank you for all that you're doing. So again, thanks on behalf of the National Women's Business Council, as well as all the attendees that are here today. Now I would like to turn this over to one of our newest council members, Ms. Samantha Abrams, I apologize. So Samantha, I'll turn it over to you and Tanae, and you can move us into the next part of our programming.
Thank you so much. I'm gonna give it right to Samantha in 2.2 seconds. I too want to thank everybody. I just want to let you know that the information that was just shared was so incredibly important. I learned a lot. I know that probably half of the women business owners that were on this call may have known 90% of that, but that was a really rich conversation. There wasn't even enough time to really get at it. What I heard was get to New Orleans, get to Chicago, get to everybody's website, make sure that you are registered, that there are forecasts. Forecasts are so invaluable. They're looking to reduce those barriers. They understand them, they know them, and they're looking to reduce it. Connect on those women business hours, all of those things that are available. We're going to dig in. We're going to really sort of unpack the information that was shared. But thank you, Council Members Roy and Prince Eason, for facilitating that conversation. Thank you, panelists. The work you do is so important, and we look forward to keeping the lines of communication open. I got to figure out how to get to Chicago and New Orleans. Now we have to hear from the public. For those of you who are new to FACA public meetings, there's always a dedicated time to where we open up the floor and hear directly from you. For our virtual meetings, I'm sorry, I'm talking too fast for the interpreter. We ask the public to submit their questions in advance. We may not have all of the answers, but we are more than willing to share what we can. I'd like to call on one of our new, energetic, and dedicated council members, Samantha Abrams, CEO of Walker's Legacy, to present the comments we received. Please know that if we are not able to present all of them in their entirety, we will post them along with the recap on our website within 90 calendar days. I also want to make note, I don't think the chat is available, and I know that folks were going to put some information in the chat. We will share that information at any post note to all of the attendees. And so without further ado, Councilmember Abrams.
Thank you so much, Tanae. Good afternoon, everyone. I think we can all be in agreement when we say this was just a robust and dynamic learning opportunity. We get to share and learn from each other, and I'm just so honored for being here today and this opportunity to serve and to give back in this capacity to other women business owners. This is something that I'm very passionate about as the CEO of Walker's Legacy Foundation, an organization that is committed to supporting Black and Brown women entrepreneurs. But as someone who is an entrepreneur herself, I am a practitioner, so I literally live and breathe this every day. I'm just certainly thrilled to serve alongside this powerhouse group of women business owners and thought leaders to help shine a light on the issues that concern our community the most, but also much needed actionable solutions. So we thank you again for joining this public meeting, for your engagement before by sending in questions, for your curiosity, for your perseverance, for your voice. That is really vital to this national conversation. It's really insightful, the presentations and the experts that we've been able to hear from and learn from and glean from today, and the conversations that we've been able to be a part of. After today, I believe the National Women's Business Council is well poised to move forward on our work on finalizing the development of this year's annual policy recommendations to Congress, the White House, and the SBA Administrator, Isabella Casillas-Guzman. Again, my name is Samantha Abrams. I am a proud new National Women's Business Council member. I'm the CEO of Walker's Legacy and founder and co-owner of Sapadilla's Caribbean Restaurants. That said, it is critical that we hear from members of the public. We have received numerous and robust questions on a variety of issues important to women business owners. And I'm so proud to be selected Today's were submitted, and we haven't the opportunity to share all of those responses, but they will all be answered in a recap on the website. And today's recording is also available on the National Women's Business Council website. So I will answer a few questions, and the way these have been designed is by categories. So the category that I will address first is a question on federal contracting opportunities. And we know that this serves as one of the most single important levers in really creating a portal for generational wealth creation and legacy building within small businesses that we as women lead. First question, would you please share how to become a registered as a business, how to become a registered as a small business, woman business? So this question is a question that we get often. And the SBA Office of Government Contracting and Business Development updates its fact sheet guidance on a regular basis. So to learn more outside of this question, please visit wosb.certify.sba.gov/. As you're probably aware, the Women-Owned Small Business Federal Contract Program, WOSB, is intended to help provide a level playing field for women business owners. How does that program work? The federal government limits competition for certain contracts to businesses that participate in the WOSB program. These contracts connect to specific industries where WOSBs are underrepresented. Some contracts are restricted further to economically disadvantaged women-owned small businesses. SBA maintains a robust list of those eligible industries and their NAICS codes. And I want to be careful because in DC, we're very jargon driven. So it's NAICS, and it's a word that, an acronym that we use loosely, but I just want to make sure that it's spelled out for any of us who are not as familiar and need to be familiar with those codes. Getting certified as a WOSB federal contract program participant makes a business eligible to compete for federal contracts set aside for the program. And it may be important to source, it might be an important source of revenue for your business, given that the federal government is the largest buyer of products and services in the US. So it is certainly worth considering. Please be aware, to be eligible for WOSB federal contract program, a business must be a small business according to the SBA side standards. So please look that up. Be at least 51% owned and controlled by a woman who is a US citizen, and have women who manage the day-to-day operations who also make long-term decisions. To qualify as an EDWOSB within the program, a business must meet all the requirement of the WOSB federal contract program, be owned and controlled by one or more women, each with a personal net worth less than $850,000, be owned and controlled by one or more women, each with $450,000 or less in gross income averaged over the previous 3 years. Be owned and controlled by one or more women with each with 6.5 million or less in personal assets. The next piece is there a step-by-step, next question is there a step-by-step program that helps small business meet the criteria to obtain contracts for federal funding? And there's some examples like our SAMs, Dun and Bradstreet number, etc. First, it is important that we share the SBA resource partners are ready, willing, and available to provide assistance to small businesses interested in offering products and services to the federal marketplace. We suggest that your first step is to visit www.sba.gov/local-assistance to find resources in your area that can help you get started. And we're not just saying that as a way to respond to this question. It really is an incredible resource that the government provides to you as a citizen, and you are essentially feeding this into this ecosystem. So I really do encourage you, if you haven't already, to explore connecting with your local SBA representative. Our third question is, how do we find the opportunities that are purchased via credit card? This is a really, really great question. Thank you for whoever it is that submitted this, and I know it will be resonant to many of us. Please know that the National Women's Business Council staff reached out to SBA staff to ensure that we are imparting the correct information. Please know that there is no requirement to publicize actions that are at or below the micro purchase threshold of $10,000 or $2,500 for certain services. Micro purchase encompasses most purchase card transactions and are often placed with vendors on established government markets. Examples of those markets are GSA Advantage, Amazon Government, etc. You may also opt to check directly with an agency's small business office. Personnel there might be able to provide additional assistance with identifying micro purchase buyers. We would also like to suggest that you consider reviewing the information on the GSA travel category schedule. Following this meeting, we will make sure to post all questions and responses to the questions on the NWBC website, along with the hyperlinks to all of these important resources. So I would encourage you to be present and capture this information and not worry about getting the exact links, because we will post that for you. Question 4, will there be more training for contracting officers on the set asides and sole source opportunities? How can we encourage and increase the goal of WOSBs? Another great question. First, let's provide some context for those listening and learning about this issue and the role of contracting officers, aka COs. According to the FICA.gov, a contracting officer is a person who can bind the federal government of the United States to a contract. Contracting officers hold a warrant that allows them to negotiate on behalf of the United States government. As the government's agents, only COs may execute, modify, or terminate a contract. Having shared that background, please know that the NWBC has put forth recommendations for additional training for both contracting officers and the owners of prospective certified women-owned small businesses. Notably, this has been a priority as well for previous congressional members that comprise of the U.S. House Committee on Small Business and the U.S. Senate Committee on Business and Entrepreneurship. For example, in 2022, during the 117th Congress, Senator Joni Ernst introduced Bill S.3896 titled Empowering Women in Small Business Act, with one other co-sponsor, Senator Shelley Moore Capito. Should this bill be reintroduced, it would in part require training by the SBA National Women's Business Council for federal agencies that fail to award 5% of contracts to the WOSBs and require these agencies to provide transparent guidance on how they plan to meet the 5% WOSB contracting goal. NWBC is currently monitoring reintroduction of this bill or similar bills. It is important to note that while NWBC is not a programmatic office per se, but rather an independent Federal Advisory Committee Council, we continue to communicate with SBA's Office of Government Contracting and Business Development to learn about the agency's ongoing trainings. In the immediate, we also have confirmed with GCBD at SBA that this year, the WOSB program has delivered training to the following agencies: the Department of Homeland Security, Department of Housing and Urban Development, Department of Energy, Department of Health and Human Services, DoD agencies such as Air Force, and next week, SBA will be delivering training to DoD small business specialists, acquisition staff, and Apex counselors at DoD's annual Small Business Training Conference. NWBC has also been told that SBA plans to continue expanding trainings, usually available resources, and working with each federal agency to help support the government meet its WOSB and EW WOSB annual contracting goal. I'm sure many others are wondering about this information, so we really do appreciate your engagement and your robust just encouragement in joining the conversation. I will now move on to a couple other questions that really speaks to how we better serve underserved, underrepresented, diverse communities. And our first question for that is, what can be done to help women, especially women of color, have better access to funding for founding and growing their businesses? This is such a great question and an area that I'm particularly passionate about. The SBA offers a number of loan programs that can be very helpful to budding entrepreneurs, or as I like to say, entrepreneurial enthusiasts, including microloan programs. The microloan program provides loans up to $50,000 to help small businesses and certain not-for-profit childcare centers start and expand. The average microloan is about $13,000. SBA provides funds to specifically designated intermediary lenders, which are nonprofit community-based organizations with experience in lending as well as management and technical assistance. These intermediaries administer the microloan program for eligible borrowers. Each intermediary lender has its own lending and credit requirements. Please do keep in mind that generally intermediaries require some type of collateral as well as personal guarantee of the business owner. Additionally, the Community Advantage Program has been granted permanency. This will yet be another critical lifeline for minority and women business owners in underserved communities. In May 2023, SBA issued an informal notice outlining steps for Community Advantage pilot program lenders to transition to a new Community Advantage SBLC license. This change provides permanency in SBA lending for mission-driven organizations like community development financial institutions, or better known as CDFIs, which have a track record of fulfilling critical capital gaps in the underserved communities. As I previously mentioned, the 7A and 5O loan programs are the most popular loan programs offered by SBA. The 7A loan program provides flexible financing options for a variety of business purposes, including capital and equipment purchases. The 504 loan program allows businesses to finance fixed assets, such as real estate, in addition to equipment. Both loans are designed to meet the needs of small business owners with low cost and long-term capital. In fiscal year 2022, the two programs provided a combined $35 billion in capital to 57,000 American small businesses. Wow. Our sixth question comes in, are there any services or assistance available for ex-offenders? And that is explicitly the question that we received. I have a past with felony drug convictions. I am desperately seeking advice and assistance with starting up my business. I need help with funding. I am not on parole or probation. I have served my time. Thank you. Thank you for this question, and thank you for your audacity and for betting on yourself. Programs are here to support ex-offenders in business growth and development currently exist at the local and state level primarily. Just to provide you with a couple of examples, California has Project Remade, while Texas has the Prison to Entrepreneurship Program, PEP. So really, the best place to start may just be within your community. Here's another example. The District of Columbia also provides direct support to returning citizens-led small business and entrepreneurs through their Aspire program. However, small business resource partners can also be of assistance. There are several women business centers and other community level resource partners that have curriculum designed to support returning citizens. So this is really probably a great place to start. Also, notably, there has been leadership within Congress on this front. Senator Ben Cardin has introduced the New START Act of 2023, which would provide entrepreneurial development resources to formerly incarcerated individuals. At the federal level, the Department of Justice boasts a number of grants with the aim to reduce recidivism and support economic development. Finally, the SBA and the White House are moving in lockstep to support second chance opportunities for formerly incarcerated persons. For example, last year, the SBA removed barriers to eligibility based on irrelevant criminal history records for a number of its lending programs, including advantage loans, community advantage loans, which are specifically designed to support individuals in traditionally underserved communities. That is a lot, but we are almost there. And this is just a clear example of how invested and how robust our community, you all have been in this public hearing. So thank you. Please be reminded that this recording will be available, and questions that we did not have an opportunity to highlight will be shared and answered on the nwbc.gov website. Here are our final two topics, questions on the topics of equitable funding, which we heard a lot from today, and the importance of mentorship, specifically for obtaining certifications. Are there any funding sources for small business owners affected by COVID who went who went virtual and never went storefront again? I have been with a dance studio for years. It's much needed in my community to combat our growing strings of violence among youth. The council is constantly considering and analyzing policy trends and recommendations in the field to make funding and debt relief a more equitable and affordable and accessible option for women business owners. We have already alluded to when it comes to what is currently available, but one of the best routes for equitable funding opportunities could really be through the SBA's funding and loan program. So be sure to research, identify, and connect with your local SBA representative. Specifically, the 504 loan is designed to support the construction or purchase of facilities, as well as the modernization of existing facilities. But if you are no longer operating a brick and mortar business, you might consider SBA's microloan or a 7A loan program. SBA's lender match tool can help you identify a lender that is right and appropriate for you. Our final question is on mentoring. And we know this is so very important, particularly for folks who look like us. So we need coaches, mentors that can walk us through the application process for certification, for a new startup, and so on. I hope today's conversation with everyone has enlightened you and provided additional information and provided you with some pieces of a blueprint that you can lead into. But today's conversations with the OSDBU experts is one of the many important steps in helping this council ensure we have a well-informed and all-around better sense of understanding of how federal agencies are delivering training and or which might be best positioned programmatic offices to expand outreach and training, whether it is for contracting officers or women entrepreneurs interested in getting WOSB certified. That said, we certainly appreciate you starting this sentiment. After this meeting, I am sure our council members will take back today's important learnings from our policy panels in particular. Your comment could very well be linked to a possible policy recommendation for fiscal years 2023 or even 2024. This is why the NWBC and forums like these are so critically important. Not only do we connect with women business owners and thought leaders serving on the council, but we get to hear directly from women business owners like you across the country. And this is just one of the many ways the NWBC continues its proud legacy of connecting the voice of thousands and millions of US women entrepreneurs to policymakers and key federal government officials in our nation's capital. For now, as we have repeatedly underscored, there are places and resources that you can get started on this important and exciting journey. The first place for a woman entrepreneur to start is by connecting to a small business resource partner, such as a women's business center, a small business development center, or a SCORE chapter. The SBA.gov website has a local assistance tab where you can punch in your zip code and find options for local assistance. Additionally, once you are certified, SBA.gov offers counseling and training resources that help small businesses win federal contracts if you feel you're ready. Also, think about contacting a contracting area director near you. Other SBA partner association organizations can also assist, including procurement center representatives who help small businesses win federal contracts. Procurement center representatives view many federal acquisition and procurement strategies before they are announced. This enables them to influence opportunities that should be set aside for small businesses. PCRs also conduct market research, assist small businesses with payment issues, provide counseling on contracting process, and so much more. Subcontracting Program Assistance, SPA, can help you with subcontracting questions after your contract is awarded. SBA can also help you with the tools to match prime contractors and subcontractors, help small businesses market their services to prime contractors, and so much more. The SBA Learning Center offers free online courses to help small businesses understand government contracting. You can find these video classes in the SBA Learning Center. Apex Accelerators, formerly known as Procurement Technical Assistance Centers, can help your small businesses if you are interested and are ready for government contracting. Apex Accelerators can also help you register in the proper databases, find and bid on contracts, and so much more. All of these, in addition to the other small business resources partners we mentioned, are in support of you and your growing businesses. I think, Tanae, that is all that we have time for today. Please remember that most of this information can be found on sba.gov website, and a recording of this meeting and responses to all the questions will be posted on the NWBC.gov website according to our mandate, which is 90 calendar days. Again, we are so appreciative of you joining us and sharing your thoughts and concerns with us today. I will now pass it back over to our amazing Executive Director, Dolphin, who has some closing remarks. Thank you so much, everyone.
Wow. Well, those of you know that we usually throw our new people into the deep end. So all of our new council members had a really significant role today. Thank you so much, Councilmember Abrams, for that huge lift of connecting the public to the council and sharing that important information. These questions and responses shared really highlight how important it is to continue the work of learning and sharing the information in support and growth of women business owners. I'm going to be quick because I know that our time has come to an end. But again, I'd like to thank the ASDBU panelists, Kava Mitchell, Denise Benjamin Sermons, Tamara Miles, Shelley Thomas, and SBA's Alyssa Sheard. I know that the council learned a great deal of information that will help us draft 2023 policy recommendations. But there's no doubt that the richness of this conversation also helped the women business owners who attended today's meeting. Thank you, Acting Assistant Administrator Donald Smith, for your commitment and for the critical updates you shared. We're excited about the growth of the Women's Business Centers. Thank you, Subcommittee Chairs McCullough, Rogers Dickerson, Cochran, and panel facilitators, Council Members Roy and Prince Eason. And thank you, Councilmember Abrams, for responding to the public. Thank you to our entire council and the NWBC staff for your tireless efforts. Thank you to all who attended today, who submitted questions, and to all the women business owners who motivate us to do more. Thank you to our interpreters who allowed this meeting to be accessible to all. This summer, NWBC will host 2 more roundtables that was mentioned earlier today. One will focus on women in STEM and the other on building an inclusive entrepreneurial ecosystem. We will also host our final public meeting of fiscal year 2023 in September. That meeting will be in person and in DC. Members of the public, please stay connected to NWBC via our website, newsletter, and social media channels. This meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.